It's not over for Andrew, Mountbatten-Windsor and Sarah Ferguson. Our royal reporter Cameron Walker joins us in the studio. And Cameron, the repercussions of Sarah Ferguson she keeps growing and growing and growing. Her charity, Sarah's Trust, for instance, has announced it will close for the foreseeable future.
Yes, they have. And the spokesperson for the charity last night saying this is not in response to the new tranche of emails that's been released by the US Justice Department. They've been discussing perhaps closing it for a number of months. But nonetheless, of course, it is coming at a time where Sarah Ferguson, clearly, according to these emails that have been released, was in contact with Jeffrey Epstein when he was in jail for child sex offences. More emails appear to show that she took her daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie, to see him 5 days after his release. And of course, a lot of people are going to be questioning, why would you remain in contact with a convicted paedophile when you have two young daughters yourself?
And why would you take them to see him? I'm sorry, I can't get my head around that.
I mean, only she can answer that, Dawn, can't she? But it's
and what about the friendship? I mean, is it just Andrew? Is it Andrew and her? Was she friends with Epstein separately?
Well, it appears to be separate. Of course, they were long divorced, although they were living in Royal Lodge. But let's remember, Royal Lodge is a pretty big property. They can avoid each other if they wanted to. I think there is some affection there, but I think the connections, but they never went to see Epstein together, put it that way.
Okay.
Andrew, of course, has been separately accused. A new woman has come forward to alleging that Epstein trafficked her to Royal Lodge to have sexual relations with Andrew. Now, of course, Andrew denies all allegations of wrongdoing, and there's no investigation into that whatsoever. And this woman at the time was an adult, unlike Virginia Giuffre, who alleges that she had sex with Andrew when she was 17 on 3 separate occasions. Andrew, of course, has completely denied that has happened. But it's some of the gushing emails that Sarah had sent to Epstein as well, calling him the brother I always wished for, signing off at one email with "I love you" and also "marry me." Now, giving Sarah the slight benefit of the doubt here, she did talk about that like that to everybody, but nonetheless, not everybody was a convicted paedophile, and that's the difference here.
It's just so sleazy. Just quickly and finally, Cameron, how will the King be reacting to this? You've covered the royals for a long time now. This must be... I mean, Prince Philip was right. He couldn't stand Sarah Ferguson, could he?
Yeah, but it's a real headache for him. I think arguably the King doesn't need to get involved with the Sarah Ferguson problem. She's not a member of the royal family and hasn't been for a long time. But the King's brother is still a blood relative, and this appears to be a can that is continuing to be kicked down the road, but the King's hands are tied. There's nothing more he can do. The only thing that can happen now is an Act of Parliament to legally remove the Duke of York title, because although he no longer uses it, he still technically has it. And, you know, he's being moved to a property on the Sandringham estate. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens.
You probably know, Cameron, that Sarah Ferguson, she's delightful company. She's very, very, very nice individual. What is her constant obsession with money? Why does she always need money? Well,
she appears to have got herself into so much debt over the years. I think when she divorced Andrew, of course, the lifestyle in which she became accustomed to, she could no longer afford, but tried to afford it. And it appears she continued to make wrong decision after wrong decision, whether or not, perhaps it was with good intentions to try and make money. But I think when you, as we've seen with Mandelson and others, you get in contact with someone like Epstein, who gives it all of you effectively on a plate, it really, you know, your judgment is questioned.
Cameron, appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. We are going to royal correspondent Jennie Bond to get her take on this one. Jenny, does it surprise you that these revelations just keep coming and now not only involve Andrew but also Sarah?
Yeah, it's astonishing, isn't it, Eamon? I did think that at the end of last year, perhaps we'd seen the worst of it, but we have not, clearly. And I think what has struck me about this latest batch of emails is, as you suggest, the number that implicate Sarah Ferguson as well. Clearly, she had a very, very close relationship with this man, Epstein, that she called my dearest friend, that she said was a legend. And in these latest emails, we even see that she involved her daughters in her friendship with Epstein. And that I find very depressing. I mean, Sarah has always been, in many ways, quite a likeable person. And I hesitate to criticise another mother's parenting, but I do ask, what kind of mother would take her daughters, then aged 19 and 20, to Miami to have lunch with a convicted paedophile, a man who had come out of jail for that very crime only 5 days earlier? I mean, it is beyond comprehension to me. And then she wrote to Epstein and joked about her younger daughter's love life. I mean, why would you do that? I mean, that's just deeply, deeply insensitive. So I think Sarah is not only going to have to question her own reputation, the damage done to that, but the damage done to her relationship with her daughters as well.
And Jennie, I mean, you've followed the royal family for many, many years now. What effect is this having on Beatrice and Eugenie? I mean, this is a horror show for you to read about your parents.
It is a horror show. Of course, they've been through a lot of horror shows involving their parents in the past, and they've always been incredibly loyal to them. And I must admit, I thought that those four were stuck together like glue. It would seem now that Sarah and Andrew are going to go their separate ways, and the tripod of Beatrice, Eugenie and their mother, and that's the word that one of them described, the strength, the bond between them, was like a tripod. I think that is broken now. I think the girls are debating amongst themselves which parent they should be loyal to, if either. It would seem that Beatrice is more compliant. She has been seen out riding with her father and taking her daughter along as well. Eugenie is keeping her counsel, and the suggestions are, I don't know, but the suggestions are that she's finding this extremely difficult and is effectively, for the time being, estranged. Because, of course, Eugenie has spearheaded and is spearheading a campaign against slavery, against trafficking of slaves. And when your own father is implicated in this deep friendship with a man who trafficked young women, although Andrew, of course, has vigorously denies and continues to deny every allegation, it must be galling for Eugenie.
How bad do you think yesterday's pictures looked with him on all fours on the ground? I mean, it almost looked as if it was a life-saving operation. It was like a kiss of life or something. You know, but if someone said they were practicing some sort of routine like that, you could maybe think, right, yeah, whatever. But how do you think it looked?
Utterly bizarre. I've tried to think of the right word. Lurid, probably not, but bizarre, weird, odd. Yes, he looked as if he was about to do CPR. One can only imagine. I don't know what kind of game, if it was a game they were playing, but it was disturbing is another word I think I'd use, because of this lifeless body of a girl, obviously she was alive, but motionless girl underneath him, and he's crouching over and looking up at the camera, obviously knowing that, you know, a picture is being taken of him. It's most odd, and as I said, I think it's disturbing.
Jennie, we're talking about the victims of this, and the real victims are obviously the young women and the girls that have been trafficked and abused. But it's interesting that Sarah Ferguson is portraying herself as a victim as well. She said nobody leaves the royal family with no woman leaves the royal family with their head.
Well, she's always had a very troubled relationship with her relatives, although she protested her love to the end for the Queen. And actually the late Queen, had a certain affection for Sarah, but she's had a difficult ride within the royal family, and I think it takes some gall, though, to portray yourself as a victim when all this is coming out about, as you say, the young women, the girls, the children who were abused by Epstein, and yet they continued the relationship. And in these latest emails, we found the relationship which they both lied about. They both said they cut up all ties with him years ago. That relationship went on for years, up to 2017. Andrew's businesses, his pitch at the Palace, was still asking Epstein for advice. He was as if he was their kind of fixer, you know. Oh, Jeffrey, could you tell us this? Could you tell us that? Could you get us some airline tickets? Oh, you are the best friend in the world. Why don't we marry me, she wrote. Marry me. And by the way, could I have £20,000? I mean, it's obscene is another word I would use.
But Jennie, what is Sarah's affixing with can I have another £20,000? If it's not another £20,000, it's another £200,000 or whatever. There seems to be this terrible dependency on money. And what I'm simply getting to is, why is that? And is there no funds within the royal family to look after Andrew and his family at all? Or what way does it work?
Well, yes. I mean, he had an allowance all the time that he was a working royal, what most would think was a very, very healthy working allowance and living allowance. And he had his rent, peppercorn rent, so in other words, no rent on his home. Of course, they've got plenty of money. They're hugely wealthy, all of them. But Andrew and Sarah in particular are drawn like moths to the flame. They cannot get away from someone with money, fame, power, and they just had to know them, and Epstein was willing to shell out, it would seem, hundreds of thousands of pounds to them, and it would seem to other people in the news, such as Lord Mandelson. We don't know the truth for all of that, obviously. But all of these very, very rich people, nevertheless, had this magnetic draw to someone who was willing to pay for everything, pay for ALM tickets, pay for anything you want. And
Jennie, in a very recent
said, I can organise anything. And she did organise anything. Tours at Buckingham Palace, teas at Buckingham Palace.
Jennie, just very, very quickly, and finally, Epstein, in a recent interview before he died, obviously, was asked whether he was the devil. I mean, it does seem that Andrew and Sarah in particular are willing to sell themselves to the devil.
I couldn't have put it better myself. That's exactly how it seems to me.
There we go. Jennie Bond, always a pleasure listening to what you have to say.
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GB News viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 73% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 73% off ExpressVPN, plus 4 extra months free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
Nigel Nelson and Piers Possinger with us. Nigel, you've known Mandelson for years, as have I. You've worked with him. When you were editor, when you were on the Sunday People, he was a columnist on the Sunday People. You and I both know he's very, very difficult, very, very charming, but equally he's mood changes, he swings. He is the black art of spin, isn't he?
Yeah, he's also very clever. I think he
no
probably
doubt.
had the best contemporary political brain I've ever encountered.
Yeah.
What was weird about him was that he was very good at advising others when they got into
yes.
What he wasn't so good on was actually advising himself.
Yeah.
And so he kept getting into extraordinary pickles that he would have been able to guide somebody else out of. So we started with him borrowing a load of money from another minister for a home, had to resign
which he hadn't declared.
And the minister was being investigated by Peter Mandelson's own department at the time.
Jeffrey Robinson.
Then we had a passport scandal. He had to resign a second time.
Billionaires involved.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought he must have learnt his lesson. And the next time I saw him was when he became business secretary and we sat down. And I thought, OK, this time you're going to actually be able to make it. And of course, while all that was going on, he was dealing with Jeffrey Epstein.
Now, Piers Possinger, you've dealt with major financial institutions when you were with Bell Possinger, which was your company, and I know one of the companies you advised was the Royal Bank of Scotland.
It was, yes, indeed.
And when he was Secretary of State for business, we now know from these emails he was telling Jeffrey Epstein about things such as a bailout of the euro, Epstein invested in the euro.
Absolutely.
He would have made a lot of money out of it.
Absolutely.
When the Prime Minister was going to resign, that's market sensitive. What about the... we also know that...
When he was business secretary, this is the most, in my opinion, the most interesting thing that really needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
In February 2010, he sold the assets, part of the assets of the Royal Bank of Scotland,
which had been taken into public ownership,
taken over by the government, and therefore was taxpayers' money. It was sold for £1.1 billion to JP Morgan in America, to Jess Staley, who was then the chief investment officer of JP Morgan. It was sold to him via Jeffrey Epstein. Now, when you see in the emails the reference to Jeffrey Epstein asking Mandelson about assets, government assets, this is what he was referring to. Now, it's very significant that the sale was made quite quickly in February. It's a very big transaction for a business secretary to be overseeing. It's very unusual. It was sold to Staley, who is now banned for life by the Financial Conduct Authority. In May that year, there was an election. Remind us why he was
banned for life, because of his
association
with Epstein,
and misleading the authorities about his relationship with Epstein, which turned out to be much closer than he had implied. On top of that, in May, there was an election. Mandelson went out as business secretary. The deal was then completed in July that year, with Mandelson no longer being business secretary. Now, at the end of a deal like that, commissions will be paid, and they will be colossal. And the question is, what did Staley get? What did Epstein get? And I shudder to think...
Was anything paid to Mandelson?
Was anything paid to Mandelson? I don't know.
I
mean, all I know at the moment is I'd like to be Mandelson's lawyer, because you're in for a very big paid...
And we do know about Staley, that Epstein had raised with Mandelson the Labour government taxing American bankers' bonuses.
Epstein introduced Mandelson to Staley.
And Staley then telephoned the Chancellor.
This asset. It's taxpayers' money, £1.1 billion. Now, forget the £10,000 to his husband, forget the $75,000. This we're talking about is £1 billion of British taxpayers' money that, while he was a cabinet minister, Mandelson sold to Staley. Now, surely that is the biggest question that needs answering.
Now, he's not here.
Was that proper or not?
He's not here and he would say everything he did was proper and done. But all these are going to be relevant questions, aren't they, now?
And it was a huge loss to the taxpayer,
it was,
of course, in the end, that deal.
And Gordon Brown is demanding now a proper Cabinet Office investigation into all the contacts between Mandelson and Epstein.
This must be included.
I think it should be.
And this one, indeed, it must be included. I mean, I think that at the moment, the trouble with the release of the documents is we're not quite sure what refers to what. It's just there's no kind of context for it. I do find, although Piers says, forget about the $75,000 that he got, I found
it's peanuts compared to what he might have got.
Yes, but the point I'm making there is that I found it really odd, his kind of semi-denial on that, by saying that he has no record or recollection of the $75,000. If any of us around this table suddenly found $75,000 in our bank account, or didn't, we would know about it. It seems that recollections don't actually come into it.
No, but also in an interview, Mandelson said that because he was gay, he wasn't aware of any of the girls around Epstein or anything. Yet there is a photograph of him in his underpants with a girl in a toweling robe standing right beside him.
It is not a great
Unless he's completely blind, he must have seen that.
Before we move on, question... The government say it's not straightforward to get rid of his peerage. It is, Nigel, because the King removed the title which Prince Andrew was born with.
Yeah, but I think peerages are slightly different. What they could do is the Lords could pass a motion which says that he shouldn't come back.